Before we dig any further into this project, I will just acknowledge that poster is really well constructed. It is visually and color, speaking in terms of the color balancing, it is quite enamoring, especially for a horror release with a bit of an artistic flair. I mean, posters only go so far, and trailers do too. This could be a project that could be along the, maybe it's not necessarily the most, competent release line, or maybe it could be one that gels quite well. I wouldn't know. We're going to engage with it together for the first time, at least on deeper investigation in a minute. It is releasing on Tubi, so it is getting a wider distribution, but Mercy Falls has some charm to it. It definitely feels in part like a usual standard horror release, if you're familiarized with the type of format of, these kids go off somewhere, especially out in the rural boonies. And in this case, you have the kids going to, or friends, it could be adult friends, I don't know exactly, I say kids, I guess, informally, but these kids go to a long-lost cabin, according to the synopsis. Ring a bell to other horror releases. Again, there's a solid construction here, and then there's some sort of tragedy that's going to emerge. But, I look at the poster, though, and it looks quite good. I will say as well, in terms of the resolution of where this could go, whatever the tragic event might be, it could be some sort of supernatural presence or something paranormal, maybe. It could be certain events that go awry. I don't know, an unexpected force of something, but it seems there's some conflict amongst the friends group. I'm generally curious to see where the story goes. And again, with Tubi, I'm on Tubi quite often. As I've always said, there's an advantage to a streaming service saying you're free, with the exception of ads. But, I've seen a couple Tubi releases at this point in their originals library along the horror line, let's say, and I covered this one a while ago. Bed Rest was actually kind of interesting. Do I think it was necessarily the most stellar, well-realized horror movie out there? It was kind of like streaming fare, but it was enjoyable, I think. Good story construction, a good idea, interesting pitch, great realization. Sometimes you find those projects in streaming. It's not always the most... you have projects that don't fit the wide, varied regard that might follow. Maybe Mercy Falls will capture that essence. Again, the poster is quite attractive. And the story has a conventional construction that could be a good basis, or it might feel usual. Let's see together. Let's see where Mercy Falls goes. It's an ironic name. Mercy, amid lots of death and tragedy.
We're heading off in search for Rona's lost cabin.
Seems like a treasure hunt.
You should come be our guide.
And I like the idea of a Scottish horror movie. I haven't watched many of those yet. Oh, it's exquisitely filmed too on locations. Europe is just so beautiful. Alright, but here we go.
Mercy Falls.
Have you ever heard of the Siren of the Loch?
I'm going to go take a dip in the lagoon.
The lost hikers look to the water for solace. It comes from...
Here's the events.
We look for those teetering on the edge.
Are you kidding? Rona. What? Oh, wait.
Where is he?
It's a psychological... Oh!
We need to stop the bleeding. Do something!
I was gonna say psychological thriller. It's more along the horror lines.
We're accomplices.
I like films that
So the wild ones love.
get into the psyche.
You know what?
We find the cabin, we go our separate ways.
Especially those accents. It adds such an interesting flair.
Psychiatric
It's
hospital.
different from other horror releases I've watched normally.
We go to the cabin.
I'm sure for those of you who are European viewers, you're looking at this going, oh, it's quite usual.
We know she's coming. We know she'll find us.
I don't know what to do.
We stop her. I am not dying like the rest of them.
Not bad. For a smaller streaming horror release, I don't know how much money's behind this movie, and with Tubi it's getting, I guess, an international presence. I don't always see such opulent construction on behalf of the cinematography, especially on location choices, but Europe is beautifully exquisite. And I have to admit, walking through the Scottish Highlands is quite beautiful. ironic, as much as the name is, the same way, for a film that's centered around death and tragedy amid a group of friends, bad decisions, certainly. It's ironic that you have a film with such a pleasant title and opulent introduction. I mean, as many of these horror films go, they're establishing their identity, right? But you watch this project play out, at least on a summation of what you're about to experience, and in offering, it's quite competent. I mean, they don't show much of this cabin. It's more so they're spending time in the outdoor space. As conventional as the synopsis might present this film to be, on realization it is quite vivid, charming, engaging, alluring even. Again, on realization, I'm very impressed. Not every smaller movie, especially on the streaming territory, has such effective illustration. The variance between daytime shots that are far, scary, especially on sound effects, mixed with a much more tumultuous nighttime environment with a fog. I love how this shot's realized. It's so exquisite. And the camera angles, by the way, the tilt. Well, the turn. Good choices. As I said, I know some would say that maybe, again, on the streaming territory, especially if you're judging different markets from one another, there are certainly horror projects that are not always the most appealing, right? And I could see arguments coming across with Tubi being like, well, it's free, and a lot of these projects tend to be like TV-esque fare. I don't know where Mercy Falls originally aired, if Tubi's its principal viewing location, but as I said, look to other comparables with Tubi. Bed Rest comes to mind, but it's not the same movie in any way. It's more a thriller, with horror undertones, of course. But that movie had a really interesting pitch. Was it the most engaging for the most part? It was okay. I don't think it was bad at all. It wasn't like some, film that you want to turn off necessarily. It was an enjoyable, it was an entertaining release. On realization, though, it did surprise me. It was actually pretty good for the most part. Mercy Falls could be different, of course, in circumstance, but equal footing. And I actually find, to be honest with you, I'm not trying to compare the two films. I don't like to rank things. I like to speak positively of projects. And Bed Rest was good, as I said. I'm trying to draw, I guess, an illustration here of, you look at the streaming landscape, and anybody can attest to this, there are projects that do well when they're realized in a much smaller capacity, and others that don't. It is quite varied. And as open as I try to be on this channel about smaller fare, I do respect it, especially in the indie space. Sometimes you can't ignore it. This, to me, feels quite good and above particular expectations that are mainstays within the smaller film field, especially on streaming. I feel that Mercy Falls is somewhat elevated in execution. Effectively. But it just pulls at me. Not just with the accents. Of course, I find Europe quite charming. But the location shots, the filming techniques, the psychological horror experience. I really like that. I'm big into psychological thrillers and anything that has more of an unnerving mental presence to it, especially in terms of illustrating chaos through general camaraderie baggage among a group of friends. I find this idea very interesting, and I think the realization is a fabulous compliment that puts it in a good position. And it could reach an audience. We'll see. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on it down below, and will you be engaging in Mercy Falls? I mean, again, that poster brought me in immediately. And with Tubi, it's free. Can't go wrong with free. Might be good, might be bad. Even there, that's mixed attribution, right, in terms of expectation and efficacy. I like what I'm seeing. I know it's a trailer, and I know it was a poster, at least at what brought me in, but on realization, at least some of the effects of the movie, I find quite an invigorating picture here. I would love to dig deeper with it. At least even just try it out. I'd be willing. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.